Hey everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to crochet Comet the Reindeer with a glimmer of cosmic energy and a flair for the dramatic. This celestial navigator inspires awe with every hoofbeat on the frosty rooftops of the world. So Comet can be made with sport, DK, or plush weight yarn by adjusting your hook size. Today, for this tutorial, I'm going to be using worsted weight yarn and a 4mm crochet hook. If you haven't already, be sure to snag the matching greeting card to make an adorable and one-of-a-kind gift that your friends and family will love. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we are starting on the head, and we're going to begin with this brown yarn and by forming a magic ring. So let's review how to get that magic ring tied and how to make our first few single crochet stitches inside. Alright, so let's review how to form a magic ring. So we're going to start by taking a little length of our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration. Make sure you're using the correct color for the pattern that you are following along with. So I'm going to take this white, and I'm going to reserve myself a little bit of a tail. So I'm going to take the end of that yarn, and I'm going to stretch it so I've got about 5 inches or so of a tail. And the tail is going to be the end that is not attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got about 5 inches or so reserved of that tail, we're going to take our yarn hand. For me, that's my left hand, but if you're a left-handed crocheter, this might be your right hand. But we're going to take our yarn hand and make a bit of a finger guns here. So my index and my middle finger, I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to be looking at the inside of them. Then I'm going to take that tail that I've reserved, that 5 inches, and I'm going to lay it so that it's over the lower digit on my index and my middle. And then I'll take my thumb and I'm going to press the yarn to those 2 fingers. Then I'm going to take my hook hand, which is for me my right hand, but could be your left hand, and I'm going to grab the working yarn. Once I've got that grabbed, I'll take it and I'm going to wrap it around the back side of my index and my middle finger so that it's sort of close to that top digit. I'll flip my hand over so you can see. So I want it to be close to my top digit, so you can see it's closer to the 2 tops of my fingers here. So we're going to wrap that around, and then once we've got it around the top digit of those 2 fingers, we're going to bring it so that it goes behind our thumb again. So I use my thumb and I pinch that second wrap in place. Then we're going to keep wrapping, this time going around the lower digit on our 2 fingers. So I'll flip my hand over so you can see these 2 wraps here. This is that one I just made, going around that lower digit. So we'll wrap around that lower digit, and then we're going to take our working yarn and one more time snug it behind our thumb, and then just pull it out of our way. So once we've done that, we should have 2 wraps and this sort of X shape on the insides of our hands. So once we have all of the yarn wrapped around our yarn hand here, we're ready to take our crochet hook in our hook hand, and we're going to flip our yarn hand over so that we're looking at the back side of our fingers. So we should have 2 wraps, one around the top digit, one around the lower digit on our yarn hand. We're going to take our hook and slip it underneath that top wrap, and then use the hook part to snag that lower wrap and bring it underneath the top wrap. Then we're going to take both of our hands and we're going to flip them over so that we're looking at the inside and away from our body. So I'm flipping out and away from my body. And then I'm going to bring my 2 hands together, so my yarn hand and my hook hand. I'm going to bring them so the index finger here on my hook hand can touch the back side of my yarn hand. Then using the thumb and index finger of my hook hand, I'm going to grab both the wrap on my hook and the wrap still on my fingers right where they meet. So I'm going to kind of snag the 2 of them together right there. Once I've got those pinched between my thumb and index finger on my hook hand, I can let go with my thumb and then gently slide those wraps off of my index and middle finger. So now that I've done that, let's locate both the tail, that's the end that's no longer attached to our ball of yarn, so it's got this blunt cut end on it. And we're going to kind of pull that over into the 12 o'clock position, so kind of up and away. And then let's locate the working yarn. That's the stuff still attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got those two identified, we're going to take the working yarn and begin tensioning it. So to do that, we'll take our index finger on our yarn hand. That for me is my left hand. Could be your right hand for you if you're a left-handed crocheter. And we're going to slip the working yarn over the top of our index finger. Then we'll take our middle, ring, and pinky finger on our yarn hand, and we're going to wrap those around that working yarn. Once you've done that, we also need to sandwich this working yarn in between our magic ring and our tail. So to do that, I like to take my middle finger and thumb on my yarn hand, and I'm going to grab that tail with my middle finger here. And then with my thumb, I want to grab the ring. So we don't want to grab our working yarn, which is kind of going in through that ring. We want to just get the bottom end of the ring here. And once you've got those two, we're going to kind of pinch them together. And you can see that sandwiches our working yarn in between the two of them. Once we've got those grabbed with our yarn hand, we can let go with our index and thumb on our hook hand. And the ring here that's on our hook is really loose. We'll tighten that by pulling our index finger up and away. You can see how that tightens that yarn. And then once we've done that, we're ready to yarn over and draw through the loop on our hook. So we'll take our hook, put the yarn over our hook. So I kind of just swing around the back side there and grab it. And we're going to pull that working yarn directly through the loop on our hook. Once we've done that, you can let go. It's not going to come undone. It won't come untied, which is very comforting because we've spent all this time creating it. The last thing we need to do before we're ready to begin is we're going to take the tail, and you can see it's threaded through our magic ring. We're going to take that tail and we're going to pull it out from the center of that ring. And from here, we're ready to begin working in the magic ring. We also need to work over the tail as well. So we'll take that ring and we'll take the tail and we're going to set them together so that we are working over both of these strands, the ring and the tail. All right, you are ready to go ahead and continue on in your pattern. All right, so I have my magic ring formed and I'm ready to start in on round 1. And if you look at the top left-hand corner, you'll see all the instructions for the pattern are going to be in the left corner and they'll track with us as we go. So for round 1, we need to place 6 SC in MR, which means we need to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of our magic ring. And then that numbered parentheses at the very end of those instructions are telling us that we'll have 6 stitches total at the end of round 1. So let's go ahead and start by placing our first single crochet stitch. And remember, we're going to be working in both this ring and under the tail that we use to form the ring. So to make that first stitch, we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to go through that ring and underneath the tail as well. So it looks like I have 2 strands here on my crochet hook. Then we're going to yarn under, meaning we're going to put the hook over the yarn or the yarn under the hook, and then use the hook to draw that yarn through the loop and then up into a nice tall loop on our crochet hook. Then to finish this single crochet stitch, we're going to yarn over, so put the yarn over our hook, and then use that hook to draw it through the 2 loops left on our crochet hook. And that forms our first single crochet stitch. I like to tighten this first stitch by grabbing it and then shifting it to the right on my magic ring. And then we also need to mark this stitch with our stitch marker. So we'll take our marker and slip it underneath those little legs of the V on the top of the stitch there, and then lock it in place. And that's our first single crochet stitch here in our magic ring. We need to make 5 more to finish this round, and we're going to make them the same way we made this first stitch here. So we're going to go through, yarn under, and draw up a loop, then yarn over and draw through both loops left on my hook, which makes our second single crochet stitch. There's my third. My fourth. Fifth. And here's my last single crochet stitch. You can see if you turn your work on the side, you can count these little V shapes to confirm you have 6, which I do. And to finish off round 1, we're going to do the magic part of our magic ring by pulling this tail here. It'll tighten round 1 into a circle, and that sets us up for round 2. So round 2, we need to make 6 INC, which will give us 12 stitches total. So an INC stands for an increase, which means we're going to put 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch from the previous round. So our first stitch is marked for us. So we're going to take our stitch marker out. And then we're going to push our crochet hook through just like we had our stitch marker. Go underneath both little legs of that V shape of our stitch. And then from here, it's just like how we made our single crochet stitches inside of the magic ring. Yarn under and draw through the fabric of our work. Then yarn over and draw through both loops to make a single crochet stitch. We also need to mark the stitch that we just made because we always want to mark that first stitch of the round. It helps us keep track of where we are. So there's the first half of our increase. We need to place a second single crochet stitch in that same space from round 1. So we're going to go through the same stitch again and make a second single crochet stitch. So you can see I have 2 of these little V shapes coming out of the same hole, which is the first stitch from round 1. So we're going to continue increasing. We'll kind of rotate our work and go through that next V shape and then make 2 single crochet stitches or an increase in that next stitch too. So I can see I have 4 stitches made and I've only worked in 2 stitches from the previous round. So I'm just going to continue rotating and increasing in each of these stitches from round 1, which will give me 12 stitches total at the end of round 2. Alright, so I just finished my last increase of round 2, and before I move on to round 3, I'm going to pull the magic ring tail really tightly one last time, and then flip my work over and give this magic ring tail a trim. I'm not going to cut it all the way off, I'm just going to cut it short to keep this tail out of my way as I continue working around. Alright, so with that magic ring tail cut, we're ready to move on to round 3. In round 3, we've got some new parentheses. So we still have the ones at the end of our round telling us how many stitches we're going to have when we're all complete with this round. But the ones that we have at the beginning of our round are a set of instructions that we need to repeat in the order they appear in those parentheses. So to translate this, the way it's going to work, we'll put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of our round. Then in the next stitch, we're going to place an increase. And that's 1 set of those parentheses. We need to repeat that pattern 6 times total to give us 18 stitches at the end of round 3. So let's dive in and try that. We'll take our stitch marker out and then place 1 single crochet stitch where that marker just was. Go ahead and put our stitch marker back in to mark the beginning of our round. And in that very next stitch of the round, we'll place an increase. So again, that's 2 single crochet stitches in the same place. And that's 1 repetition of those parentheses. So we need to repeat that pattern 5 more times. So 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, and that will take us all the way around so that the last increase of that 6th repetition will be our last stitch of the round. So we'll keep repeating that pattern. 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, there's my 2nd repetition, Alright, so there's my last increase, which takes me all the way around round 3 and sets me up for round 4. So round 4, we're going to begin by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, then we're going to follow that with 1 increase, and now that we've done those first 2 stitches, we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat, but this time we're only going to repeat it 5 times total. So that new parentheses pattern is we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches. That 2 SC means 1 single crochet stitch, 2 single crochet stitch, and then we're going to increase after that. So 1 single crochet stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, and then an increase. So there's 1 repetition. I need to do that 4 more times, which will take me all the way to my last stitch. And if you look at the end of our instructions, we're going to end by putting just 1 single crochet stitch in that last stitch of the round. So that's 1 single crochet stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, increase, Alright, so there is my last increase of that parentheses pattern. And to finish off this round, I need to put 1 single crochet stitch in the last stitch of the round. Alright, that's round 4 done. I'm ready for round 5. We've got a new set of parentheses with some instructions to repeat. So this time we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of the round. So that's 1 single crochet stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, 1 single crochet stitch, so 1, 2, 3, and then an increase, so there's 1 repetition. I need to repeat that another 5 times for a total of 6 repetitions, which will take me to the end of round 5. Alright, that's the end of round 5 for me. For round 6, we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. So there's 1 single crochet stitch. There's my 2nd single crochet stitch. Then we're going to increase. And then we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches, and then an increase. So So those 4 single crochet stitches, and I'm ready to increase. And there's 1 repetition of that pattern. We need to do that another 4 times for a total of 5 repetitions, which will take us to the last 2 stitches of the round. And if you look at our instructions, we'll end by putting 1 single crochet stitch in both of those. Alright, so there's my last repetition of that parentheses pattern, and I'm going to end this round by putting 1 single crochet stitch in each of the last 2 stitches. And that wraps up round 6. So for round 7, we've got a new parentheses pattern to repeat, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches of the round. Alright, there are those first 5 single crochet stitches, and I'll follow those with 1 increase. Then I'm going to repeat that pattern another 5 times for a total of 6 repetitions all the way around this round. Alright, so I just wrapped up round 7. For round 8, we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around this round. So I'll place my first single crochet stitch and put my marker back in. And then just continue putting 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. Alright, so that's round 8 done. For round 9, we're going to start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first 3 stitches of the round. So those first 3 single crochet stitches, following that with an increase. And then we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches of the round. There are those 6 single crochet stitches, and then an increase in the next. And then we're going to repeat that sequence of 6 single crochet stitches, increase, another 4 times for a total of 5. Which will leave us with 3 stitches at the end of our round, where we'll just put 1 single crochet in each. Alright, so I just finished the last repetition of that parentheses pattern, and then I'm going to place 1 single crochet stitch in the 3 remaining stitches of this round. And that wraps up round 9. So for rounds 10 through 19, we're going to just be putting 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So don't forget, as you start a new round, you need to take your stitch marker out, place that first single crochet stitch, and then put your marker back in place to mark where you are. So I will see you back here whenever I have finished the last single crochet stitch of round 19 and ready to insert the safety eyes and move on in our pattern. Alright, so you can see I have just finished the 19th round here of that 1 single crochet per stitch per round. It's time to put the safety eyes in. So first, if Comet's going to be for a young child or for a pet, I would advise maybe embroidering the eyes on instead, but if not, we're good to use some safety eyes. So first we're going to take our piece, and you can go ahead and take your hook out too now, just pull that loop up long. And we're going to flip it over so that loop is at the back side of our work. And we've just made the 19th round, so our eyes are going in between the 14th and 15th. So we count up from 19, so 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. Our eyes are going to be going in between these two rounds here. So I'm going to take my first safety eye and I'm going to push it through the fabric of the head there. And the safety eyes are about 5 stitches apart, so I'm going to count 5 stitches over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then place that safety eye so that those 5 stitches are in between the two of them. Alright, so I've got my safety eyes placed where I'd like. I'm going to go ahead and take the little plastic backs that they come with and snap them on the inside. And we are ready to continue working, so I'm going to go ahead and take my hook and put it back through the loop we drew up long and tighten it down. And we're ready for round 20. So we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches of our round for round 20. And then we have a new type of stitch to learn called a DEC, which stands for a decrease. So to make a decrease, we're going to go through our next stitch. So push through, yarn under, and draw up a loop. And then we're going to do that same thing in the stitch right after. So we'll go through the next stitch, yarn under, and draw up a loop. That gives us 3 loops total on our hook. To finish our decrease, we'll yarn over and draw through all 3. So there's that first repetition of that parentheses pattern. We need to repeat that pattern of 6 single crochet decrease 5 more times for a total of 6 repetitions all the way around. Okay, that's round 20 done. Round 21, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches of the round. And then we're going to decrease after that. And then we're going to repeat this new pattern of 5 single crochet stitches, decrease, another 5 times for a total of 6 all the way around. Alright, that's the end of round 21. Round 22, we're going to put 4 single crochet stitches in the next 4 stitches. So 1 single crochet in the next 4. And then follow those with a decrease. Then we're going to repeat this new pattern of 4 single crochet stitches and then decreasing another 5 times for a total of 6 all the way around this round. Alright, that's round 22 done. Round 23, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches. And then a decrease. Then repeat that sequence another 5 times for a total of 6 repetitions. That's round 23 done. Round 24, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then decrease. Then repeat that sequence another 5 times for a total of 6 repetitions. Alright, that's round 24 done. So round 25, which is our last round, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round. And then decrease. Then repeat that pattern 5 more times. Alright, so I just made my last decrease and we are ready to fasten off. So we're going to take our stitch marker out and we need to make a slip stitch. So to make a slip stitch, we're going to go through the stitch our marker was just in, yarn over and draw through that stitch, and then draw the loop we just created through the only other loop on our hook to slip stitch. Then we can cut a tail from our working yarn. So probably 12 inches or so. We're going to use this to sew that last round closed. And then we're going to take that slip stitch and pull until the tail we cut passes through the loop as well. And then tug the tail to tighten that slip stitch down. So next we need to get some stuffing and stuff the inside of the head here. So let's go ahead and stuff here. Alright, so I have the head stuffed and I'm ready to go ahead and close off this last round. So we're going to take the tail that we trimmed and we need to get it threaded through the eye of our yarn needle. And then we're going to sew through all 12 of the front loops left behind from these decreases from our last round. So to sew through the front loop, when we crochet, we pass through both loops of our stitch. You can see I've got them both here on my needle. To sew through just the front loops, we need to only get that front loop, the one closest to the front of our work, on our needle. So we're sort of sewing up between those two parts of the stitch. And we'll pull the tail through and then sew up through the same part on the next stitch. Pull the tail through. We're just going to keep sewing through these front loops until we've sewn through all 12 of them. Alright, so I've sewn through all 12 of those front loops left behind. So I'm going to take the tail that I've used to sew and pull. And by pulling, I'm going to cinch closed that last round. Then to secure that cinch, I need to tie a knot. So I'm going to take the tail that I've been sewing with and loop it over the surface of my work. And then take my yarn needle and grab a little of that last loop that I sewed through, and then sew up underneath and through the loop that I created. And then by pulling the tail, the loop that I made is going to wrap around the tail and tie a knot that I can then weave in by sewing down and into the fabric of the body and then just out through any place to weave the tail in. You can see that pulls the knot to the inside and hides this tail inside of the work as well. So then we can unthread our yarn needle, and by pulling tightly on that tail and trimming close to the fabric, I weave it in and I can discard what I didn't need. And that is the head complete. Let's move on to the next part of the pattern. Next up, we need to make the snout. So we're going to be using white yarn, and we need to begin once again by forming another magic ring. Alright, now that I have my magic ring formed, I'm ready for round 1, where I'm going to put 8 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, once you have all 8 single crochet stitches inside of your magic ring, we'll pull the tail to close the ring off. And then we're using joined rounds to make the snout. So we're going to slip stitch in the first single crochet that we have marked. So we'll take that marker out and slip stitch in that same stitch it was just in. And then we're going to chain 1 stitch. And we're ready to move on to round 2, where we're going to increase in each stitch all the way around. So I'm going to mark that first stitch for my increase, and then continue increasing. Alright, so I'm all the way around, and you can see here's the slip stitch and chain 1 that I made from the last round. But we're going to slip stitch to the first single crochet that we made. So let's take that stitch marker out and slip stitch through. And then chain 1. But before we move on to round 3, let's give our magic ringtail one final tug to tighten it. Then flip our work over and give it a trim. And that sets us up for round 3, where we're going to just put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So I'll start by putting 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then marking the single crochet that I just made. And then just continue putting 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch. Alright, so I've made it all the way around. You can see here's the chain 1 and the slip stitch that I made from the previous round. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out and slip stitch to that first stitch to join this round. And then chain 1. And we're ready for round 4, where we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat. So we're starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round that we're going to mark. Then we need to make a second single crochet stitch. So that's 1, 2 single crochet stitches, and then a decrease. And we need to repeat that pattern another 3 times for a total of 4 all the way around the snout. Alright, so there's that last repetition for me. To finish the snout, we're going to take our stitch marker out and slip stitch in the stitch it was just in. And then we are ready to cut a tail to sew with. 12 inches or so ought to do it. And then we can pull that last slip stitch until the tail goes through and tighten it down to fasten off. Now that we have the snout done, we can go ahead and attach it to the head, and it's going to be in between the eyes and in between rounds 12 and 16. So I'm going to go ahead and take the snout and I'm going to center it so that it is in between the eyes and goes up a little above into round 12 and down a little bit into round 16 here. And I'm also going to put a little stuffing behind the snout on mine. And then we're going to go ahead and thread the tail through the eye of our tapestry needle. And then we can sew it so that it is attached in between the eyes here on Comet's head. So to sew it on, we're going to catch some of the fabric of Comet's head and then sew up through one of the stitches at the end of the last round that we just crocheted. And I'm just going to continue grabbing some of the fabric of the head and one of the stitches from that last round all the way around the snout. Alright, so I am all the way around on the snout, and I'm ready to fasten off, so I'm going to tie another surface knot into the fabric of the snout. So make a little loop on the fabric of the snout, sew up through some of the fabric, and then up through the loop that I've tied. And that will tie around the tail I've been sewing with. And then I'm going to sew the tail down into the snout, and into some of the fabric of the head, and out through just a random place, doesn't matter where. Which pulls the knot to the inside and weaves the tail in. So I can unthread my tapestry needle, and by pulling that tail tight and trimming close to the fabric, weave it in. And that is the snout attached to the head. So let's move on to the next part of the pattern. Alright, so next up is the red nose, and again, starting with another magic ring. Once you've got your magic ring formed, we're going to put 6 single crochet stitches inside. Alright, when you have all 6 single crochet stitches placed inside, you can pull the magic ring tail. And then we're ready for round 2, which is the last round, where we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the stitches that we put inside of our magic ring. Alright, there's my last single crochet stitch. I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch where my stitch marker just was. Then we need to cut a tail to sew with. Again, 12 inches probably is fine. Pull that last slip stitch until the tail we cut goes through, and tighten. I'm going to trim my magic ring tail so it's even with the top of that second round that I just made. And then we are ready to attach this to the snout, and it's going to go here at the very tip, sort of towards the top of the snout. And we'll attach it the same way we attached the snout to the head. So we're going to take the tail from the nose, thread it through the eye of our tapestry needle, and then we'll take some of the fabric from the snout and then one of the stitches from the last round that we crocheted on the nose and just whip stitch the nose to the snout. Alright, so once you're all the way around the nose, we're going to tie another surface knot. Again, make sure the surface knot's on the fabric of the nose, so the knot is the same color as the fabric you're working on. And then send that tail down into the nose and into the snout and into the head, and then out through any old place. Then we can pull the tail tight, unthread it from our tapestry needle, and give it a trim. And there is the nose attached to the snout, so let's move on in our pattern. Alright, so next up in the pattern are the ears. So we need to make 2 of these, so I'll walk you through how to make the first, and then you need to come back and make a second. And then we can come back together and get them attached to the head. So we're going to be working in that same brown color that we used for the head itself, and begin with another magic ring. Alright, so now that we have our magic ring formed, we're ready for round 1, which is to put 6 single crochet stitches inside of that magic ring. Alright, there are those 6 single crochet stitches. We can pull the tail to tighten off round 1 and set us to round 2, which is we've got a parentheses pattern, starting with 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then an increase, and we're going to repeat that another 2 times. 1 single crochet stitch, increase, and one last time. That's round 2 done. Round 3, we've got another parentheses pattern to repeat. This time 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. Followed with an increase. And we'll repeat that 2 more times. Alright, that's round 3 done. Round 4, we just need to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 12 stitches of the round. Alright, that's round 4 done for me. Round 5, we've got another parentheses pattern. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then decrease. Then repeat that pattern 2 more times. So 1 single crochet stitch, 2 single crochet stitches, decrease, Alright, that's round 5 done, and round 6, which is our last round, we'll put 1 single crochet stitch in the first stitch of the round, and then decrease. Then repeat that another 2 times. 1 single crochet stitch, decrease, Alright, there's that last round and that last decrease, so I'm going to fasten off by slip stitching to the stitch my marker was just in, which is the first stitch of the round. Then I need to cut a tail to sew the ear onto the head with. 12 inches or so ought to be enough. And just like how we fastened off in the past, we're going to take that tail we just cut, pull that slip stitch long until the tail goes through, and then tighten it down. I'm also going to give this magic ring tail a trim so it's even with the opening at the top of the ear. And that is the first ear crocheted. Let's make one more and then we can get them attached to the head. Alright, so I have both of my ears crocheted and I need to get them sewn on to the head. So I'm going to start with one, and I'm going to thread the tail that we cut from when we crocheted through the eye of my tapestry needle. And then we're going to fold the ear flat. So here I have it folded flat with the tail on one end here. And then we're going to kind of pinch it a little bit. So pinch the fabric so that it makes this like indent on the ear. And to reinforce that shape, we're just going to sew through and pull to flatten that ear shape that we want for attaching to the head. So now that we've done that, we're ready to sew the ear onto the head itself. So the ears are going to be on either side of the head around round 9. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they're going to be attached onto this round on the side of the head. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the ear on by sewing into some of the fabric of the head at round 9. And then I'm going to pass through the fabric of the ear. And also a couple more times through both the head and then come back up through the ear to get the ear attached. Alright, so there's the ear attached to the head. To secure, we need to tie another knot. So we'll go ahead and loop the tail of what we've been sewing with over the fabric of the head. So down into some of the fabric of the head and then up through the loop. Pull to tie a knot, and then we'll weave that tail in. Pull that tail tight and trim, and that is one ear attached. We need to do the same thing with the other ear, so it's cinched, and then get it attached to the other side of the head. Alright, so next up we have to make the antlers, and we need to make 2 of these total. So I'll walk you through how to make the first, just like with the ears, and you'll need to come back and make the second. So they're made in 2 sections, and we're starting with the larger of the 2 sections. So we're going to be using this dark brown and starting with another magic ring. Then we're going to be placing 5 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. Alright, when you have all 5 single crochet stitches inside of your magic ring, you can pull the tail. And then for rounds 2, 3, and 4, we need to just put 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So don't forget to move your stitch marker up as you work. And I will see you back here when we are ready to fasten off the large antler and start the smaller section of the antler. Alright, so I just finished the last single crochet stitch of round 4. I'm ready to slip stitch and fasten off the larger section of the antler. So we can take our stitch marker out, and we're going to slip stitch through that last stitch, the first one of the round that we just made. And we need to cut a short tail. We don't need very much, 5 or 6 inches or so. And then pull that slip stitch through and tighten. Then we can trim the magic ring tail even with the opening of the larger section of the antler here. And then we'll thread that tail we just cut through our tapestry needle. And we're going to weave it in. So I'm just going to sew down into the center of the antler and out through the bottom to weave that tail in. And I'll give it a trim. So there's the larger section of the antler done. Let's set this aside. We're going to come back to it in just a moment and start the smaller section of the antler. So again, we're going to use that dark brown, begin with the magic ring. Then the smaller section of the antler is made just like the large section, we just have 1 fewer rounds. So we're going to put 5 single crochet stitches inside of this magic ring. There are those 5 single crochet stitches, pull the tail. Then rounds 2 and 3, we're going to just put 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. So I'll see you back here whenever I have finished round 3 and we're ready to join the 2 antler sections together. Alright, so I just finished round 3 of the smaller section of the antler. Before I move on, I'm going to trim the magic ring tail so it's even with the opening here. Keeps it out of my way. And then we're going to join these 2 antlers together by slip stitching into the larger section. So let's go ahead and grab that larger section. And then we're going to grab one of the stitches from the larger section here. Just push our hook through, slide it onto our hook. And then we're going to slip stitch these 2 together. So we're going to yarn under, draw through the fabric of the first longer antler, and then draw that loop through the loop on our smaller antler. And then we're ready for round 1 of joining these 2 together, where we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each of the 5 single crochet stitches of this antler. So here's our first single crochet, Alright, so I've single crocheted in all 5 of the stitches of the longer antler. And then the stitch our stitch marker is currently in on the shorter antler, that's where we need to place our first single crochet stitch on the smaller section. So we're going to single crochet right where that marker just was. So there's the first, here's our second, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so that takes us all the way around both of those antlers. And then for round 2, which is the last round of the antler, we need to place 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches. So we're going to skip over that slip stitch that we used to join the antlers together. So kind of go right into that first single crochet stitch. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in this stitch. I'm going to go ahead and mark that as well. Then 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch. So there's those first 2. Then we need to decrease. Then we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches. There are those 3 single crochet, then 1 more decrease, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the last stitch of the round. Alright, so that wraps up the antler. We're going to slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, so I'll take my marker out, slip stitch, and then we need to cut a tail to sew with. I'm going to give myself 12 inches. Then pull that last slip stitch so the tail goes through and tighten. And that's one of the antlers made. We need to make 1 more and then we can get them attached to the head. Alright, so I have both of my antlers crocheted and I'm ready to go ahead and sew them onto the head. So I'm going to take the tail from one of the antlers, thread it through the eye of my tapestry needle, and then the antlers are going to be attached just above where the ears are on either side of the head. And to attach them, we're going to sew through both layers of the fabric of the antler and through the fabric of the head too. So I'll grab some of the fabric of the head, then I'll sew through some of the fabric of the antlers. I'll just continue whip stitching, grabbing some of the fabric of the head and sewing through both layers of the antlers. Until I have sewn through all the way across the bottom of the antler and have it attached. Alright, so there is one of the antlers attached. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off by first making sure that I'm in the fabric of the antler. And then by tying another surface knot. And then sew the tail through some of the fabric of the antler and into the head to weave it in. And then trim. And there is the first antler attached. We need to repeat with the other antler on the other side. Alright, so I have both antlers attached, and last thing, if Comet's going to be going on your holiday tree, we can attach a little bit of jute to make it so it has a little hanger. So I cut a length of jute, I have about 6 inches here, and I like to tie the ends together, just like so. so it makes a loop. And then I'm going to take my crochet hook and push it through some of the fabric here of that first round, just straight through, and then pull that jute cord through the fabric of Comet's head. And then I can pull this loop here through the one on the front and tighten, which gives him a cord to hang if he's going on a Christmas tree. But with that addition of the jute cord here, that wraps up Comet's tutorial.